There's no bigger story in Washington right now than the question of Russian interference with the presidential election. People are calling for investigations, making allegations. But according to a new poll by Fox News, voters are less interested. A new poll that we put out asked registered voters what they thought of Russia's attempts, whether they helped sway the outcome. 32% said Donald Trump benefited. Just 1% said Hillary Clinton. 59% meanwhile said it didn't have any effect at all. Joining us now is one of the first in Congress to demand an investigation of all this, California Congressman Eric Swalwell. Congressman, thanks all for joining us.
Thanks, Tucker, for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. I know that you're abroad right now, so you may have missed it. But at the White House briefing today, Josh Earnest said something I thought pretty striking. He said this of Trump. He said Trump was obviously aware and concluded, based on whatever facts and sources he had available to him, that Russia was involved in swaying the election. That's pretty close to charging Trump with colluding with Russian intelligence. Do you believe that? Do you believe that Trump had an early heads up about this and was colluding with the Russians?
We don't know enough right now, Tucker, and that's why I'm calling for an independent commission. You know, when the president-elect is disavowing what 17 intelligence agencies have said, that Russia was responsible for the hacking, and what the CIA apparently is now leaking out, that they had a preferred candidate in Donald Trump, I think the best way to take the politics out of this is to have an independent commission, have them look at who was responsible, how we were so vulnerable, and then most importantly, because I don't think we need to relitigate the last election, look forward at what we can do to make sure this never happens to our democracy again.
Right. That's not quite right, though, Congressman, because really the key info dump in the election was the hacking of John Podesta's, Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta's Gmail account. And there's no consensus on that, how that happened. 17 intelligence agencies are not saying that the Russians were behind that. They're saying, in fact, it was done with a very simple phishing hack that you or I could have done. And so it's not really that clear. And, of course, the Director of National Intelligence, Clapper, has not weighed in on this definitively either way. So it's not actually a settled question in the way that you're presenting it, is it?
Well, no, Tucker. Actually, DNI Clapper has said that the hacking that did occur against the DNC, the DCCC, the Podesta emails came from the Russian government. I have seen also, in my oversight role as the CIA senior Democrat, this evidence. It's overwhelming, and Donald Trump should first start taking his intelligence briefings. He's taken fewer than anyone that has been the president-elect before him. And two, he should, I think, have faith in the intelligence community and want an independent commission.
Well, then why is there, if it's settled, as you're saying it is, then why is the FBI apparently saying that there is no consensus on why this was done?
I don't want to speak for the FBI. The leaks that I have seen come out is that apparently there is a question as to whether the Russians had a preferred candidate. But I think if you look at the overwhelming evidence that was dumped through WikiLeaks, through Guccifer 2.0, it was to benefit Donald Trump. But that's something we should look at, and I don't want to prejudge the results of an investigation.
Well, you're
obviously
it's prejudging them now because you left open the possibility
Tucker, the way I look at it,
let me just finish.
Sure, go ahead.
That Trump was somehow colluding with foreign agents, which is a pretty strong thing to say. But in the piece you wrote yesterday for The Hill, you said we need a 12-member bipartisan group that would interview witnesses, obtain documents, issue subpoenas. Who would subpoenas be issued to?
Sure. I think subpoenas would be issued to anyone in the intelligence community who had access to the information they were looking at to support the hack. And Tucker, the way I look at this, I was a prosecutor for 7 years. And in any case that you're prosecuting, you move forward when you have what's called probable cause. So right now, we at least have enough evidence that the Russian government was involved. But I think to have a final independent sign-off, especially when the president-elect is undermining the findings of the intelligence community, it would serve us all if we had an independent commission to say once and for all who did this, how they did this, and make recommendations so it never happens again.
You know, I've lived here a long time, long enough to believe that it's entirely within bounds and patriotic to question the findings of the so-called intelligence community, which is not much of a community, as you know, since you're on the committee. It's a bunch of different agencies, often at war with each other, often reaching contradictory conclusions and sometimes wrong conclusions. So why is it prima facie out of bounds to say, well, hold on a second, show me the evidence, tell me more, et cetera? Or maybe I don't buy what you say. You're not allowed to say that now? You'll have to sort of go along with whatever they say in a bovine manner? I mean, what is this anyway?
You should be allowed to say that if you were saying it from a perspective of being informed. And there's no evidence right now that Donald Trump has even taken the briefing on the evidence that Russia was behind
well, I haven't
hacking.
taken the briefing either, and I have all kinds of questions about it. And I actually don't believe I mean, I think there's quite a bit of subjective analysis in here. But let me ask you a question I've asked every night for the last week, which is, if this, I have no doubt the Russians want to influence our election and everyone else's election and have all kinds of ill motives. I'm not a Russia guy. I'm not a fan. However, I don't see any evidence that whatever they did or didn't do had a material effect on the outcome of the election. And if you know otherwise, tell me what specific piece of information that they got into WikiLeaks moved enough votes to make Hillary Clinton the loser and Trump the winner.
And Tucker, this is why I am not trying to relitigate what happened. What I believe is whether you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, you should not tolerate a foreign government trying to influence the election. Whether they did or they did not, they certainly, the evidence shows right now, that they tried to. And this, the victims may have been the Democrats this time.
Okay, but I get it. It could be the Republicans next time, and I'm against hacking. But we know that the Russians have been breaking into government computers literally for years, including the White House. The White House computer system, as you know, you're on the committee, was shut down for weeks over this. And I don't remember any kind of independent blue ribbon commission issuing subpoenas to the Obama people to ask why they allowed that to happen, right? So basically you're alleging that it had a material effect.
Election.
But if it didn't have an effect, then who cares?
Well, this is a presidential election that I certainly believe that when you are dumping on a major party's candidate, you are trying to influence the outcome of the election. And we should stand up, Republicans and Democrats, and say, we don't tolerate that. These are our fights.
Yeah. I guess I just would want to see any evidence that it had an effect. I mean, you could say, well, the Russians, you know, want America's military to disarm. Okay, I'm sure they do. But until they get us to do that, it's not a problem. You haven't demonstrated that they actually had an ill effect on our country, have you?
Well, Tucker, I think you're proving my point, which is an independent commission should look at this to look at and answer all of your questions.
Okay. Well, maybe it will. And I hope it does. Congressman, thanks for joining us.